Hi guys, and welcome to my Zarya guide. In this video I'll be covering every important tip and trick that you need to know about Zarya in order to get better. Make sure that you watch the entire video to ensure that you don't miss out on any important tip. Zarya is one of the many staples of Brawl and Deathball comps, and is infamous for the large quantity of damage that she has the potential to output. Her bubbles provide a large safety net, and her grav is game winning. She can be very independent and is a great solo queue character that I recommend you add to your hero pool. Without further ado, let's get into the video. The reason you would want to play Zarya is that you believe you can win the frontline battle. She has no mobility, and as such, she has trouble applying any pressure onto the enemy team's backline. And as such, she is very reliant on winning the frontline battle by taking damage, making her do more damage. This is the reason you see a lot more Zarya on maps like King's Row. It is quite often a frontline battle, but more on that in the map section. Let's talk about the most important part of her kit. Energy, or charge as some people call it. In your games you might have heard the term that Zarya is such a high charge. Well, this is referring to her passive. Her passive is called energy. What this does is whenever Zarya has a bubble active, any damage done will be converted to energy, which she stores at a max of 100. The ratio in which energy is stored is 1 energy for every 5 damage, for a max of 40 energy from a full 20 HP bubble. This energy also decays at 1.6 per second, so it can be hard to keep between fights and sustain high numbers of energy. What this energy does is that it provides extra damage to Zarya with both her primary and secondary attacks. I do not know the exact amount of extra damage percent, but at 100 charge, which is her max, her primary fire will roughly do 90% extra damage, so roughly energy is 1% extra damage per second. That is the most important part of Zarya. And by keeping yourself on high energy, you will ensure that you are doing the ridiculous amount of damage. Talking about damage, let's explore Zarya's primary and secondary fire, remembering that each gets more powerful with every bit of energy. Her primary fire is a beam with a relatively short range. The beam can be shot for 5 seconds straight before needing to be reloaded for 1.6 seconds, allowing Zarya to put out quite a constant damage throughout the fight. This beam will do 95 DPS at 0 charge, and will scale all the way up to 170 DPS at 100 charge, making it a wet noodle at lower charge, but a DPS monster at high charge. It being a beam means it can go through Sigma and Diva's Eat, as well as Genji's Deflect, so it can be really strong against these characters who rely on these abilities to live through situations. Her secondary fire is a lobbed projectile. It has a very nice arc and a good projectile speed that allows you to hit anyone at any range with enough practice. Its damage is 47 on a direct hit at 0 charge and 95 at 100 charge. And you can shoot these once every second 5 times before needing to reload. These provide Zarya with AoE damage and long range harass and poke. Also note that neither of these firing modes can headshot, so aim for the center of mass. Zarya's bubble are essential to her kit, and she is very reliant on getting value from them to ensure that she does meaningful damage. So if these bubbles are so important, how do you get the most out of using them? First, let's cover the stats. Both projected and self barrier have 200 health and will last 2 seconds or until they are destroyed. Self barrier has a 10-second cooldown and projected will have an 8-second. These bubbles block both damage and CC and are very flexible in their uses, as they can be used aggressively or used for extra health when disengaging. Your default main target for projected bubbles should often be your main tank, as it is very rare that they just won't take damage. However, do not only bubble your main tank, your supports and DPS may need some healing and support throughout teamfights, and the 200 HP shield means more for those characters than say your Reinhardt. Now, when you should use your personal bubble is a bit more complicated, but its uses fall under 3 different needs: the needs for charge, the needs to push, and the needs to escape. In the setup phase of teamfights, your goal is to play spam with your secondary fire and use both bubbles to absorb the opposing team's spam and build up 80% charge right at the start of the fight. Then, once you have attained high enough charge, you should save your personal bubble to either engage or disengage. Almost no DPS, support, or even most tanks can stop you if you walk at them with high charge and bubble yourself. You can just steamroll over enemies, and by bubbling yourself, they are only given bad decisions to choose from. The final use is after the teamfight has gone wrong after the initial poke phase. And you have high charge, and by saving bubbles, you can often surprise enemies with an extra 200 health when escaping, and this can and will save you in some scenarios, allowing you to keep that high charge and DPS. Now that I've covered all of Zarya's basic abilities and firing modes, it's time to talk about her ultimate. Her ultimate is Graviton Surge, and it is quite possibly the most impactful ultimate in the game, as it has the potential to wipe teams, set up solo kills, or shut out the enemy team. Graviton Surge is very good even when it's used by itself, but it becomes significantly better when you pair it up in an ult combo. This is how you will get those easy team fights, as all you need to do is press 2 buttons for an easy wipe. Some of the best ultimates to combo with are Hanzo, Pharah, Tracer, Genji, or Nano Ryan. With these ults, it's really hard for the enemy team to survive the colossal AoE damage being put out, and will most likely just die. But a very important thing to look out for is it getting eaten or deflected. When playing against Genji or Sigma, you don't have to bait out their cooldown, as long as you don't directly hit them with the grav, it's fine. But against a diva, you do need to have a lot more counterplay. You cannot just throw out your grav if she's around. You can do a couple of things, such as pressuring her out of mech, getting her to matrix and then instantly using it while it's cooldown, or use it against a wall where it can still pick up enemies but it won't be on LOS of diva. As stated earlier, the comps that Zarya works well within are Death Ball and Brawl comps, as she can easily bubble her frontline tank, and that will give her more charge, providing good synergy. She can work in Bunker comp, but requires you to be actively pressuring enemies that stray away from their team, and in general you will likely struggle obtaining and keeping energy. An even harder comp for Zarya is when dive is being played on any team. With a friendly dive, she has no synergy and will not have any impact in the fights that take place. Then when dive is being played on the other team, it is extremely difficult to get charge. The fights will be short and quick, not allowing Zarya to bully enemies at high charge when bubbling, and in general it isn't nice to play her in those scenarios. In terms of map, any map that puts the front line against each other is best for Zarya. Think maps like King's Row, Eichenwald and Legion Tower. These are some of the best Zarya maps, as high ground is not as prevalent and the main focus is winning the frontline fight, and that is where all the focus goes. Maps where she struggles are large open maps with lots of high grounds. These maps are like Junktown, Dorado and Watch Point Gibraltar, and Zarya finds it quite hard to get in engagements where she has a favourable advantage. Now I'd like to share some specific tips for Zarya. Similar to Soldier, you can perform rocket jump with your secondary fire. This will give you an increased jump height, and if done from spawn, will be slightly faster to getting you back to the teamfight. But something that is different to Soldier is the ability to use 2 of these secondary shots at once to achieve even higher heights. You can shoot a shot directly up into the sky, and as it comes down, you can shoot another, and this will give you access to some flank routes and high grounds previously unachievable. Graf has the same arcing projectile as her secondary fire, so don't be afraid to just lob it if you need to. It isn't expected to be done from a distance, and you may catch people off by surprise. When dueling a target, you should be utilising both primary and secondary fire. Most of us cannot track people as good as others. Not all of us can be Sinatra and Zarya, and as such, we rely on secondary firing. When in duels, you should add secondary fires to knock up the enemy while you shoot your beam. Since you can only find one explosive shot a second, you should still shoot your beam in the time. Also, by combining both, you get an optimal DPS for those who can out-track like pros. Anyway, thank you guys for watching the entire video. If you enjoyed it, why not leave a like? This was my first video since finishing the uni semester, and I intend on making a Junkrat or Pharah guide tomorrow, followed by a Mercy guide. So, subscribe to watch those when they come out. But anyway, till next, see you then.
My phone lights up, but it's never you. I can't help but feel so lonely, and all these things that I can't undo. I'm falling apart so slowly.